So, what does freedom mean to you? And in your ideal world vision, what would give you 100% freedom in every sense of the term?
So, freedom to me essentially means being able to make your own choices or decisions without them having a negative impact on anybody else, be that hurting them physically or emotionally.
Mhm.
I don't think
And when
100
you say, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. No, no, carry
I
on.
I don't think 100% freedom exists because again, every action that you do or every decision that you make will inherently have an impact on someone else, and
Mhm.
it is morally wrong to be totally selfish. So I don't think
Mhm.
100% freedom exists, but again, that is okay.
Fair enough. And I do have a couple of follow up questions on that. We'll come back to it later. So, how do you think freedom or lack of freedom that you might have experienced compares to your peers, your friends, or anyone else that you associate with?
So I would say this goes both ways. In some instances, I've had more freedom than people around me, and in some instances, less.
Hmm.
One example that comes straight to mind is choosing my career. When in eighth or ninth grade, I was introduced to design, and I decided that this is what I want my career to be. You guys were totally okay with it. You guys supported me, provided me with all the resources I needed to excel in that career. Even though both you and mommy don't come from design backgrounds, you were totally okay with me choosing something that I was passionate about. Whereas when I compare that to other people that I know, a lot of times their parents want their kids to follow in their footsteps. But again, I had the liberty there to take my own decision.
Got it. And were there situations, or are there examples that you can recall where the freedom that you got was less than what you would have desired, whether it be from your perspective or in comparison to your peers?
Yeah, I think my mind goes back to my early childhood when again, and I can understand this because I guess I was the first child. You guys were very protective of me, and
Hmm.
therefore I was not allowed to go out with my friends at a very early age. I wasn't allowed to stay over at their place. Um, so that is something I do think I did not have the freedom to do early on. Whereas all my friends, they would go out, they would stay at each other's place. It was totally normal. But again, I was not allowed to do that. So yeah, that was one of the instances.
It's interesting you bring that up because that also takes me one of the incidents that happened way back in kindergarten, where uh, because of how you were brought up in a very protective or an overprotective environment. Uh, One day, I remember you had forgotten to take water from home, and you were very thirsty, and you refused to take water from your friends or even from your teacher. And even though the school had like a really good setup, like water was filtered, was clean, but you just absolutely refused, and you kept on crying. Uh, and that prompted your teacher to call us and really give us a scolding, and which was also kind of important because that was an eye opener, and that helped us become a lot more open to you being on your own, to being you being able to just even accept what other people are saying instead of you only listening to what your parents are saying.
I think it's a learning experience, right? Again, your first child, you don't exactly know what you're doing, but you always want the best for them. So
Hmm.
you again rely on your instincts. You don't really take a lot of other things into consideration. You again maybe rely on the way you were brought up as kids. So I think all of those factors influence. But yeah, I think, as I said, I think that was one of the very few instances in my early childhood where I feel like I did not have the freedom compared to my peers.
Mhm. And I also recall, like, growing up, you were always a very quiet child. You had your instances of naughtiness, but like that was like still a very small aspect of your overall personality. So do you think that was on account of your inhibition to express yourself, or did you have any inhibitions in expressing yourself growing up or even in adolescence?
Yeah, so growing up, I think I did lack a lot of confidence. I again grew up in a very protected environment. I did not have the level of interactions with peers as others did. Again, simply because my primary interaction with my friends would be at school, and
Hmm.
again, you don't get to interact with people a lot during the school hours. And I
Hmm.
did not have those interactions with them after, which I think led me to be a little less confident when I spoke to people or spoke to people for the first time. I think that is something I struggled with a lot. If you remember, I would be very shy when I would meet
Hmm.
someone new. And but yeah, I think that definitely has changed a lot now. I think boarding school was one of the biggest life changing moments for me. And okay,
Hmm.
I'll continue this answer, but again, going back to your previous question, incidents where I think I had more freedom than people around me, I think the decision to go to boarding school was one of those things. I
Hmm.
if I remember correctly, you guys never forced me to go to boarding school. It was my decision.
Hmm.
I genuinely don't remember why I decided to go to boarding school, but again, yeah, I just thought of it, and you guys were totally on board. In fact, when we found out with the school that I was eligible to go a grade early, you guys allowed me to go earlier as well, even though we hadn't planned for that. So yeah, that
Hmm.
is one thing I'm very grateful for. But yeah, coming back to this
Yeah, slight.
question,
Wait,
sorry,
let's
yeah,
pause there actually. Slight correction. So it wasn't totally something that you came up with.
okay,
What had happened was, personally, I was never happy with the uh, environment that you were growing up in from an education perspective, in terms of the lifestyle you were getting in that city, right? And I think I kind of, if I were to use the term brainwashed, maybe that's too strong, but in some senses I did influence you in believing that the environment or the lack of competition you were having in your school wasn't what you should be getting. You should be getting a lot more challenging environment. You should have gotten a more open environment where you could experiment, where you could really thrive. And I think I might have influenced those decisions from that perspective. But yes, ultimately it was your decision that like you should be going to a boarding school. And in fact, what was very interesting was, we were looking to have you in boarding school once that decision was made, starting in grade 9. And but when we visited the school, you loved it so much, you were like, I'm ready to go right away, so you went a year earlier.
yeah, I think okay, I think I'm recalling those incidents better now. I think what happened was, yeah, as you said, we had that discussion about the fact that I was not getting the right level of competition or the best education in the environment that I was in.
Mhm.
And I remember we were also at the same time just talking about university in general. You went to university in the US, and that was kind of what I had planned as well. And I think somewhere in between, the idea of boarding school just came up, and I think that's how we began to decide
Right.
this step.
Yeah, true. Okay, so yeah, you were continuing, sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah. So, in terms of expressing myself, as I said, yeah, I think boarding school became a big life changer for me, where I was kind of thrown into this environment where I was living with 40 odd people that I did not know.
Hmm.
And again, like if you're living with them, you're interacting with them 24/7. So I kind of
Hmm.
grew out of that shell, and I
Hmm.
and interacting with people became a lot easier. I think expressing myself became a lot easier, and therefore even the transition to university was very easy because it was kind of replicating boarding school in a slightly bigger setting.
So you were not thrown into the environment, you threw yourself into that environment.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's what you will end up doing when you become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, I think in every stage of life, right? Like either you're thrown into it or you throw yourself into it.
Mhm.
And yeah, you just have to figure your way out. And I think having that confidence early on is really important because then you learn how to deal with any situation given to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So going back to the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned that freedom is something that you want to exercise, which basically is like, what you want to do without having a negative impact on others. But let me ask you this. So I think we all agree, and pretty much universally, everyone agrees that freedom is about doing what you want to do, right? And you add this extra layer which says without having a negative impact on others. But how would you deal with a situation where you have to make a decision which will possibly have a negative impact on others, but the reverse will have a negative impact on you? What would you do in that situation?
Okay. I think there is a very fine line between a negative impact and a challenging impact. One,
Hmm.
a decision that you make might be challenging for someone else to handle because of the way it impacts them. And I think in
Hmm.
that situation, it's okay to make that decision if it's better for you. Again, um, depending on what your relationship is with that person, you need to help them handle the consequences of your decision. But where I draw the line is if it has a blatantly negative or harmful impact on someone else, I would never like to make that decision, or I would think very hard about a decision like that.
Hmm. So you use the word harmful, and if I were to look at how I see freedom, for me, yes, freedom is very similar, where freedom is the ability and the choice to do what I want, when I want, and how I want to do things. And I also believe that it should not be done at the cost of harming others. There will be, like the way I look at things, there will be situations when the decisions that I make might hurt someone else's feelings, but there is a slight difference between hurting feelings versus harming someone. So of course I think for me also, harming anyone is like an absolute no no. But I do realize after many mistakes that there will be decisions that I make or things that I do that might hurt the feelings of people. But in the grand scheme of things, I also want to make sure that I do not harm myself while trying to protect the feelings of someone else.
I agree, but I also think that if you're in the position of hurting someone's feelings with your decision,
Hmm.
and again, depending on the relationship you have with them, if that is a close relationship, I think it is also
Mhm.
your duty to help them cope with that feeling.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes, you can't just alienate them and say that you deal with your feelings yourself. No, of course
Exactly.
not. You want to be very mindful, and I think over time people start understanding why you made certain decisions.
True.
And if they are close relationships, you have, or if you are close to them, for sure they will understand. If they don't understand, then they are possibly not close relationships.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question for you. So,
Hmm.
you asked me a lot about my freedom growing up. Um, do you ever think you took away freedom from me at any point?
Generally speaking, no. And I always had the belief that you should be given exposure to everything that was possible for me, and I tried doing that, and let you choose what you liked. So let's take the example of sports. You were exposed to multiple sports at a very early age. There were sports that you did not like, but there were sports that you immediately enjoyed playing, and then you continued. And that is how I've always believed things should be done. my responsibility as a parent was to just make things available to you and let you naturally decide what you wanted for yourself. That said, that also led me to make a couple of bad decisions, where, because I myself am very passionate about computer science and programming, I had this bias that you absolutely need to learn computers as well. And I pushed you hard multiple times to learn programming. And as a result, what happened was you built a very strong uh, resistance towards it. And I think that continues till this date. Maybe you're slightly better now on that front, but and that was a mistake. And then I realized that, yes, even though generally speaking, I do believe that decisions should be done by, like, anyone at the whether they are like a young kid or an adult. In this case, pushing you hard was a bad decision. And I do believe that's how I kind of not exactly take freedom away from you, but was trying to push you into this hole or into this path which you would not have enjoyed and you might have regretted. In a way, it was nice that you pushed back hard enough that you did not get into that path, because if you had and you felt miserable, you would feel that your freedom has been completely taken away.
Yeah. Now that you say it, yes, I think the couple of times that you introduced me to computer science and I took those classes, read those books, absolutely hated it. Um, but I think two things come out of it. I think one of the things was timing for sure. I think the first time you introduced me to computer science was quite early on. Um, and I'm guessing it felt too academic or too overwhelming at that time, which is why I developed that resistance.
Mhm.
Because if I think of computer science now, again, in college, I was forced to take two classes. It was part of my course requirements. I wasn't able to come out of it or get out of it. But
Hmm.
I did like it at this point. I don't know why, but I did enjoy these classes and I enjoyed
Mhm.
the projects. So I'm assuming it's to do with the timing. Another thing that you said was, um, I think rather than introducing me to computer science, you kind of forced me to do computer science. Because again, you
Yep.
introduced me to a lot of other things that I liked or did not like, but I never developed that resistance towards it. I think because computer science, because you were so passionate about computer science, you tried really hard to get me into it, which is what developed that resistance.
Possibly, yeah. So yeah, something to avoid in the future. All right. Yeah, I think there was one more example about, like, again, reading is not something that you have enjoyed ever,
Mhm.
and that was another area that we were trying to push you. And but looking back, I think I do feel good that you were able to push back and not just comply because someone was telling you to do something.
Yeah,
And in my mind, that itself is a state of freedom,
true.
that you will just not take something and become a slave of an environment or a habit or a value system just because someone tells you to do so.
Mhm. Yeah, I think for a lot of things that I did not enjoy or did not like, that I was required to do or forced to do, I, as you said, I was able to resist very well. Another thing that I feel I did well was find a workaround or find an alternative of sorts. And I think reading
Mhm.
is a good example. I never enjoyed reading, I never enjoyed learning through books, but I found my way of learning through videos. A lot of what I learn about the world, be that news, current affairs, just how things work in general, I don't look at books or articles. I learn that through videos, and that has proved to be very effective for me.
Cool. Excellent.
So now that we've talked a lot about freedom for me growing up, I want to ask you, what was freedom like growing up for you?
Okay. So I don't even know if I were able to process freedom or what freedom meant. or even the significance of freedom growing up. uh, we grew up in a very homogeneous environment, if I may use that word, where it just felt normal. So whatever was thrown at us, the type of lifestyle we were living, the way we grew up, decision making, everything felt very normal because that was the only thing we knew. And if you don't have a comparative, you really won't even be able to judge what freedom meant. In fact, I would even argue that to us, freedom only meant freedom at a country level, because that's what we were taught in high school or in school. So, yeah, there really was no concept of freedom per se. But then in later years, when I reflected back, I kind of realized that interestingly, there were like we did get a lot of freedom in terms of what we wanted to do, the type of lifestyle we wanted to live. But at the same time, that freedom was also very skewed. And especially when I compare myself to my elder brother and elder sister, so the three of us, even though we were living in the same house all together, there was like like there were subtle differences between the freedom that each of us experienced. Being the youngest, I would say I was the luckiest and I got comparatively more freedom than my elder siblings. My sister, also because she was a girl, she got comparatively possibly the least freedom. Like there was a lot of restriction on her, like who she could interact with, who she was allowed to go out with, where she was supposed to be, where she was not supposed to be, what she was allowed to say, what she was not allowed to say. So those things actually kind of feel little off-putting in today's terms. And I think my sister feels that a lot more than I do, of course. And this is something that we have also recently spoken about, to a point that she was very upset. And there were a few instances when she insisted that she had to leave home and go to boarding school, as like completely opposite to your case. But yeah, that's how it was. So, and I think even for me, there were boundaries set, which I won't say was like taking freedom away. I think to a major extent it was about our parents believing or doing things that they felt would be the best for us, right? They were doing it with their best intent. So from that perspective, yes, it may feel that we didn't have enough freedom. But again, I have no complaints, no regrets around how we grew up. uh, I do feel bad sometimes for my sister, especially because of the extra constraints, and especially when she saw when she was able to compare the level of freedom that my brother and I got compared to her. I'm sure it would have affected her a lot more than me.
Yeah, I think I know we talk about freedom in a very retrospective way. We wish we had a lot of freedom, or we were able to do certain things at an earlier stage. I think one of the things, as you said, we do have to take into account is the fact that our parents wanted the best for us. They never really did anything with wrong intentions. They never did something to restrict us. It was just the environment that they saw their way, and they wanted to make sure it was, or anything that you guys did or had the freedom to do was safe for you guys, right? um I think s- especially when you talk about your sister, that time, which was, I believe, the 1980s,
Hmm.
growing up in India, there were a lot of restrictions on women in general. But again, the reason that came about was because women were not safe. So yeah, I think all
Yeah.
of these restrictions don't come out of any bad intention. They're just, your parents are trying to be careful and take care of you.
Yeah, always. And it's also a function of what you have gone through and your experiences and your value system that you then try to influence whoever you are interacting with. And that said, when I look at us growing up versus your time, I think for us, life was a lot simpler because we did not have exposure to media compared to the, or at least to the level that the current generation and future generations will have.
Yeah. Okay, interesting when you say that, right? Because when I think about freedom growing up, the things I wanted freedom for, essentially one of them was going out, being able to watch television, being able to play games on my phone, being able to sleep late. Were there any specific instances that you remember from your childhood that you really wanted sole decision making authority on?
In my childhood, not really. Because I think in a lot of ways you are always dependent on your parents. So you're like, if you need anything, you will ask them, and sometimes you'll get them, sometimes you won't. I think to that extent, I was like, given that I was the youngest, possibly most of my demands, so as to say, were always met. To a point that if my brother or sister wanted something, they would always come to me and say, go and ask this to dad. uh, so I think I did have that extra advantage from a freedom perspective, and also getting what I wanted. So yeah, but outside of that, nothing really. I think our demands, our needs were also fairly simple and limited, and yeah, nothing much. And as I said, like, we only knew what we knew at that time, and whatever was
Yeah,
made
makes
available to
sense.
us was good enough, and didn't really think much beyond that. Our only other reference points would have been, what kind of lifestyle or what our friends are getting, and in comparison to that, I think things were pretty good. Yeah, no
Makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, so things did change a lot. I would say, okay, things didn't change a lot, but when I moved to college and I experienced college life, outside home, outside the country, in a very different environment, very different cultural setting, that's when things hit me a lot more. Like, the type of people
Hmm.
that we or rather I ended up interacting with from all over the world, different cultures, different backgrounds, and that's when and maybe I was still immature to start really drawing comparisons between early childhood and college life. But just from a lifestyle perspective, the ability, or not even forget the ability, even like the situation that gets created where you have to make decisions in college on your own,
Hmm.
whether it be simple things like choosing your classes, which professors that you want to sign up for, uh, doing like small things like laundry, what to eat, etc. Everything is what you need to decide. So while that's all about decision making, but it's also about the freedom to choose. So at
Hmm.
that point, you are choosing everything that you need to do, that you have to do. And
Right.
good decisions can lead you to the right path, and bad decisions can put you in trouble.
Hmm. Did you find that transition difficult to navigate, going from very little freedom to essentially total freedom of all your choices?
Not really, actually, because I would say we were fortunate enough that we grew up in an environment, in a home where if we asked something, we would in all likelihood get it. uh, like, even though both my dad and mom, they had limited schooling, they always wanted the best for us, and to that extent they also gave us the freedom to choose. In fact, one of
Right.
the biggest decisions that I made in childhood was the decision to go to university in the US. My parents had no
Hmm.
idea, and for me it was like, I just want to do it, and I went through the whole process of applying to universities, did my research, did everything on my own. Like, there was no concept of counselors or even help that you could get at home or through friends. And that was like a decision that I had to make, and I was not pulled back ever. And finally, when I got admission and I went to my mom to say that, I've got admission to the US and can I go, she said that, go talk to your dad. I went to my dad and asked the same thing, and in less than 3 seconds he said yes, no questions asked. So I do feel very, very blessed that we were encouraged to do our own things, and there was support. So that also created this environment where transitioning into college life wasn't difficult. Like, again, this was a decision that I had made. It was not imposed on me, and because I had made that decision, whatever came my way was something that I had to deal with, and therefore it was much easier to deal with as well.
I've never asked you this. We've never talked about this. But how did you make that decision to go to the US? Because if I know this correctly, you were the first among your cousins to go to the US for college.
Not exactly the first, but my uncle, and so therefore his three kids, who are pretty much my age, they moved to Canada a few years before I did. Um, that said, I would guess that maybe I was one of the first kids to go to the US in the family, amongst all our 22 cousins. And yes, it was new, it was different, it was not something that anyone else had ever done. But I think the reason why I wanted to go was a result of a few things. uh, and this is what mom tells me is, even in, like, like very early years, I did not want to go to my dad's office because his office was not in the most nice, beautiful looking place in the city. And I was like, I will never work there. And I did not, I kind of, and maybe I don't know like the real reasons, but I never felt like continuing to live in the city where I grew up in. I always wanted to go away. And when I saw my cousins relocate to Canada, I was like, I want to go with them. Uh, And I think another small thing that possibly prompted me to think about the US was, in the condo that I was living in. One of our friends, who was maybe I think 5 or 6 years older than me, uh, he went to study in the US, and pretty much everyone in the condo looked up to him because he was a brilliant kid. And he was like almost like, someone that we admired and we wanted to emulate. So maybe that also played a role, but no specific reason. In fact, and maybe we are digressing from the topic here, but I got into a few universities after applying, and even like the way I applied was just like without any thought. It was okay, I like California, so let me apply to a few universities in California. I had heard of Ivy Leagues. Okay, so let me apply to a few Ivy Leagues without having any sense of what I wanted to do. So in some senses that was complete freedom, but possibly stupid freedom if I had made the wrong choice. And I finally got into a couple of universities, and I wanted to go to the one in California. And then I spoke to my future brother-in-law, and I said that, I've gotten into this university in California, and to this Ivy League school in the East Coast. And but I'm thinking of going to California because California is nice, it's cool, and like, whatever limited knowledge I had. And he literally told me, you are an idiot. And he told me, no, you don't go to California, you go to Philadelphia. And I was like, okay, that's where I go. And I had no idea what I'm going to do. But anyways, that's how decision making happened, and that's what happens when you get freedom to do what you want. uh, I did get lucky. I might have made a wrong decision because I had so much freedom in that particular choice. So anyways, that's how things are.
Which was that university in California? Was it USC?
It was USC. Yeah, but that said, I know you. Yeah, like, oh, not I know. Like, you are going to USC as well. Uh, USC has become such like so much better now, and especially the program that you are in is like so exclusive and
Yeah.
so wonderful. While growing up, USC had the nickname of University of Spoiled Children.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think yeah. When I first heard this story about, I don't know, might have been like 7 or 8 years ago,
Hmm,
when you told me that, oh, you got into UPenn and USC and then you chose UPenn. I was
hmm,
like, totally makes sense. Even when applying to universities, I wasn't a big fan of USC until I found out about this program that I'm in. And I
Mhm.
think for what I'm doing, I think USC is much better than all the other schools that I applied to.
Oh yeah, totally. In fact,
Um,
if I were to draw that comparison, we even visited Penn, and we saw that they had a design program which was literally a room, compared to you guys
yeah.
having like a full-fledged program with a three-way like concentration and everything. So yeah, I think from that perspective, ultimately I think we do reach the places that we are meant to.
But yeah, talking about the University of Spoiled Children, I think that tag still holds some value. Yeah.
All right,
Okay, I
okay.
think sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so before we move to the next stage of this episode, where we talk about adulthood and parenting and freedom at that age group, uh, let's maybe spend another few minutes talking about your boarding school environment and freedom that you experienced or did not experience in that setup.
Yeah. So I think boarding school was a bit of a freedom paradox for me. Again, I think for reasons quite similar to yours, I was really happy to get out of the school I was in, go to a different country. Um, it was definitely very exciting. And again, I had the freedom to choose, I guess, what I studied, the clubs I joined in school, and all of that, the sports I played. But again, boarding school was a very structured environment. Um, we had some very interesting rules in eighth grade when I went. We had to hand in our phones and laptops at 9 p.m. every day, and we would only be able to collect them the following day at 8 in the morning. Um, we had to check in with our teachers almost every 4 hours, and we had set lunch times, breakfast, dinner times. So yeah, it did feel a little, looking for the right word, I think, confining.
Mhm.
Um, I think from that perspective, I had a lot more freedom at home. Um, but again, I think it was important for the structure to be there at this stage, because again, you're going to boarding school, you're away from home, you are in this new world where you think you can make all your decisions yourself. So that, I think, does create some chaos, or that can create some chaos.
Mhm.
But I think having that freedom along with this structure really helps. It helps you make the right decisions. Um it guides you properly. And I think, yeah, that's why I call this the freedom paradox. But again, I think this combination was really helpful for me developing well at that stage in life.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of times freedom gets confused with discipline and guardrails, etc., because absolute freedom is absolute chaos, right? Because then we'll essentially end up being animals, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and
Cool.
I'm happy these rules were there. um Sometimes it was also fun to break some of these rules, but
Of
again, yeah,
course.
that's just a part of having fun. So we've talked about freedom in the context of early childhood and adolescence, but how did things change for you as you became an adult?
So, okay, before I go to myself, you would generally expect that when someone becomes an adult, they would get gain freedom overnight, and because at this point you are away from the nest, you are fending for yourself, you are making your decisions. I think in my case, in a lot of ways, it was almost the opposite, where I felt that freedom was taken away from me. Uh, After college, or even when you're in college, you start thinking of your next phase of life and how you want or how you envision that phase of life to be. which is also a very important phase of your life. But then a few things happened which prevented me from making those decisions. Uh, One of the big ones being where I wanted to be. And just because of family factors and social factors, I had to come back to the city where I grew up in. Not something that I wanted to do, especially given the passion I had around technology and the type of work that I wanted to do in that field. So, to a major extent, yes, that freedom was taken away. At that point, and maybe I was very immature then, and I was like, okay, family comes first. It's okay to sacrifice, it's okay to compromise. And which is why I go back to the whole concept of what does freedom mean. And yes, while we want to care for others, while we want to care about people's sensitivities, we also want to make sure that the decisions that we make should not harm us in a way where we are doing certain things for certain people so that we don't hurt their
Mhm.
feelings.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Um, let's talk about this phase in your life, right, where you were not in the position to make a lot of decisions that you would have wanted to make for yourself. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fact that you know you can't make these decisions and you have to live with whatever, I guess, external environments have decided for you?
It's tough, it's very very tough. um, if I were to think through the emotions that I went through, it didn't feel good at all. I didn't feel good about myself. And there was this phase where I just felt completely, I would say maybe heartbroken also, because I really had aspirations of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. And when that gets taken away from you overnight, you are like,
Mhm.
no, what's wrong, what's happened? Especially when all my life I grew up in an environment where I was able to do things myself. I was able to make my choices. And especially when you are coming from that mindset, and then you go into a complete opposite setup, it feels very very confusing, I would say. uh, Eventually I think you kind of just accept things. And of course everyone will be different. For me, I think I just accepted things the way they were. And almost to a point that if I continue to reflect back, or if I had continued to reflect back, I would continue to feel the pain as well. I just chose not to feel that pain anymore.
Mhm.
And I don't think that would have done anything good. uh, so I just ignored it and let it be a part of me, or my karma, or whatever you want to call it, and just accepted it and moved on.
Yeah,
So yeah,
interesting.
in hindsight, were there opportunities when I could have reversed that decision? Yes, absolutely. But did I choose to make those decisions? No. And I live with it.
Mhm.
That's okay. Yeah, no complaints.
Yeah. Okay. Um, let's fast forward a few years from that when you became a parent. Uh,
Mhm.
did your freedom vanish even more when you became a parent?
Okay, interestingly, no. And I would say to a major extent, freedom was restored for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So, not because then I was able to move to a different place or anything like that. Uh, it was more about when you were born, my priorities changed, my focus changed, my purpose changed. And at that time, my only purpose and objective was you and your upbringing. So all my energy, all my focus shifted towards you. And in a lot of ways, would say that my freedom was restored.
Mhm.
My sense of the sense of myself was restored, because now it was you, and all the decisions that I was making, uh, especially the bigger ones, was all about what is going to be best for you, how do I want to bring you up. And from that perspective, it it was actually a blessing in disguise, because I had a new purpose and I was able to shift even subconsciously from that old environment mentally to this new environment.
Interesting. You used a phrase, the sense of myself. What do you mean by that?
So the sense of myself is really about who I identify myself to be, which encompasses everything. What is my purpose, what do I want to do, how do I want to be perceived by others, how do I want to perceive myself, what do I think of myself. So I think that is that sense, that and that is what you kind of live with, and all your actions, all your thoughts, all your emotions are around that single thought of, like, who are you.
Interesting. So I'm guessing, like, when I was born, your like the majority of your focus transferred to being a parent, which is why you
Mhm.
also started viewing yourself slightly differently, and your your being essentially revolved around, I guess, raising me.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because and that became my purpose, right? So, and that's why I also enjoyed parenting so
Hmm.
much, because it aligned with my
Yeah.
purpose.
Cool.
So when people, even, like, when I hear some young parents, or even at that time my friends, talking about sleepless nights and complaining about long days and this and that, for me, I was never able to relate to that. For me, every moment, whether it was times when you smile, whether times you were not well, or uh, I was, like, waking up in the middle of the night, none of those, even those, what you would assume or think to be painful
Hmm.
moments, never felt like pain to me.
Right.
It just felt like a part of the overall purpose that I had.
Interesting.
And therefore I think I enjoyed, and therefore parenting actually became quite easy for me.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't think people really think about parenting in that perspective. Whenever you hear, or whenever you use freedom and parenting in the same sentence, people just say that those things don't go together. But yeah, this is a really interesting perspective. Okay. So again, let's fast forward a few more years, where let's talk about the stage of life you are at now. Um for
Mhm.
context, of course, I have grown up, so that parenting phase is kind of over. You relocated to a place where life is a lot more comfortable and nice the way you want it to be. So
Mhm.
let's talk about freedom in these last 7 to 8 years.
Yeah, so I would actually say that in a lot of ways, or pretty much in every way, I do feel that my freedom has been, again, further restored, because ever since moving to Singapore about 8 years ago, uh, I have been able to rebuild myself and my lifestyle, be, e- and even beyond the parenting aspect. Because again, when I moved to Singapore, that's when you move to boarding school as well. So there were these forced periods when I was just with myself, while you were away in boarding school and now in college. So uh, moving to Singapore also allowed me to get to my next level of freedom, uh, and whether it be living the lifestyle that I have always wanted to, being able to exercise, being able to do my yoga, being able to meet people, build friendship, understand different cultures, just everything, which is something that I never got when I was back in India.
Mhm,
Uh, and maybe when I was a child, subconsciously, those are the things that I wanted.
mhm,
And when you are growing up in an environment where you are not getting uh, clean air, the quality of food is not good, the way the systems work is not what you or your values align with. And when you start finding that elsewhere, of course you will get attracted to that place. And to that extent, Singapore has been ideal, uh, almost like perfect, because for me, I've always wanted an environment which connects me to my value system, and also provides the comfort, the efficiency. And I think Singapore is a really good fit from that perspective, because I get the best of Asian culture and Asian value systems, and the best of Western efficiency and processes. So, yeah, to that extent, I think Singapore is possibly one of the best places to live in.
Yeah, totally agree. um, but okay, I think you touched upon these briefly. But if I were to ask you, what were the two main changes that either the environment provided you or that you um essentially made when you moved to Singapore that totally changed your life? What would you say?
I don't know about two, but okay. So maybe at two different levels. One was just the surface level quality of life,
Mhm.
the efficiency, the things that I'm able to do. So just like, from my personal perspective, I enjoy running, I enjoy doing physical activities, I enjoy uh, meeting people from different cultures, different environments. And I think Singapore provides all of that in an ideal
Mhm.
manner. Okay, it's possibly one of the most difficult places to run because of the weather, but in spite of that, you do get clean air at least, and because of that clean air, you can enjoy outdoor activities. So, at a surface level, those are the things. But I think at a deeper level, the biggest impact has been just in being in an environment where you are not judged, where people don't really care about who you are, what you do.
Mhm.
Uh, what they really care about is who you are at a personal level. And if I were to compare that to the previous life, where everything was about judging, okay, how much money does this guy have? What does he do? Why does he do this? Why does he speak like this? Where you're constantly being judged with a sense of skepticism, versus my new environment, where again I've built amazing friends, and a set of people that I know that I can relate with, who are completely different from me in so many ways. But yet we come together because we enjoy sharing our experiences. We enjoy being with each other, not because of how much money someone makes or how they look or what they do, but just because it's all about, like, sharing experiences, sharing values, and becoming a better version of yourself. So if I were to summarize it, I would say that in my previous environment, it was more about how can you pull someone down, and here it's the opposite, where how can you help someone go further up.
Interesting.
So yeah, a huge
Yeah.
huge difference.
Okay. Now that we've talked about all these different phases, I guess one question I have for you is, having lived through these different phases and experienced freedom in different ways, what is your number one advice for someone, let's say at my age, who is just going into adulting?
So generally speaking, I would say I would have a lot of advice for you as you move into your adult life. But today, since we are talking about freedom, I my biggest advice to you, and in fact to anyone, we all experience freedom at different level, right? Again, I would also argue, and let me come back to your question in a moment, but I do want to set up this context first, where I do believe that across the world, pretty much no one is free. Like, we talk about freedom, we talk about free countries, but even a free country is not really a free country because the people themselves are not free. Okay, in most countries, and I would say including democracies, and including every democracy in the world, uh, that word is just a farce, right? uh, Freedom is being misused. You may call a country a free country at the country level, but are the people really free? Do they have the capability of thinking for themselves? Do they Are they able to get what they deserve? And again, going back to things like basics of life, like uh, if you're not getting good healthcare in a free country, you're not free. If you're not getting clean air, if you're not getting good food, even though you're paying taxes, even though you are being a responsible citizen, how can you call yourself free? There are factors that are controlling you beyond, which is, so it's just like, yeah, it's quite shocking. But that said, we do have different levels of freedom, and whatever freedom that is available to us, I would advise you and anyone else that make the most of it, and even go beyond that to think that, okay, where am I not getting the freedom that I deserve or that I want, and work towards that.
Mhm.
Okay. Unfortunately, in today's world, let's also be honest about it and say that things will not continue to improve easily. Okay, we all hope things will improve, but it's not going to happen if we don't do anything about it. And in a selfish way, I would say that first focus on your own freedom.
Right.
Right, if we do it the other way around, the world is too complicated and there are too many factors to pull you down. As an individual, most individuals will not be able to do anything about it. So, but if we focus on our own freedom and focus on making the quality of our lives better, I do believe that the net result will be that the world will become a better place.
Yeah.
And going back to the thing that, yes, with freedom comes a lot of responsibilities. So be responsible in your decisions, be responsible in the choices you make. In the process, you will end up hurting people's feelings. But as long as you do not harm anyone, as long as you are doing things which will ultimately make you happier, you will also be able to do things for
Yeah.
others. If you yourself are not happy, if you yourself are not free, you will not be able to do anything for anyone.
Yeah.
So, from that perspective, yes, you will come across as selfish early on, but in the grand scheme of things, you are possibly doing a service to the world, to society.
True. Yeah, I think as you said, as much as we say um or we talk about society, we do live in a capitalist society, each man for themselves. um and
Mhm.
I think it is really important that you focus on yourself and your freedom to start with. You can't be a messiah and like try and do good for everyone when you're not doing good for yourself. I think that obviously comes at a later stage. There is a quote I remember. It doesn't apply exactly in this situation, but I'll still say it. The quote was, "First become rich, then become a philosopher." I think what it translates to in this case is, first make sure that you yourself are in you're free, you're in a good position yourself, and then go and try and fix life for others.
Totally. Oh yeah, 100%. I think you have put it together really, really well. Become strong, and then you can help other people become strong as well.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm also happy you brought up the whole concept of freedom in the world today. I think what you said about people being free, no one really is free. um if you look at democracies, every country has its own problems. There's freedom of speech in so many countries. People aren't allowed to say what they want to say. Press is manipulated by the government. And there's other things also, right? Like there's women's rights. A lot of countries are struggling with women's rights, children's rights. So even though people are Like on a country level, you are free. As individuals, we will never be, or we aren't totally free yet.
Yeah, and I think even if we go a little more at a micro level, I would almost argue that there is so much more slavery today.
Mhm.
We just don't call it slavery, but there is slavery. Whether if you look at most organizations, most corporates, the way they treat their employees,
Yeah.
it is slavery. Yes, you do have the option of quitting and going into a different job, but while you are at that job, you are treated, you may not, again, you may not be called a slave, but just the work environment that gets created, it does feel very constraining.
Mhm.
And yes, you have the option, or so as to say, the freedom to move from company A to company B, but company B is no better than company A,
Exactly.
right? And then if you look at family, especially when it comes to women in Asia, and to a major extent in India, the way women are treated, where is the freedom?
Mhm.
So yes, I think there is more slavery than what should be, what we are made to believe. It's just that we have found a different, we have kind of abolished that word slavery, but in essence, a lot of elements of slavery still exists in our
Yeah,
lives.
that's true. And I think even on a smaller level, if we talk about freedom of speech, right? I think society has become so sensitive and woke that no one really says what they want to say. Everyone is so guarded in their conversations. People are like people are being people pleasers, essentially. Like, you say what you think the
Totally.
other person wants to hear. You say something that you think won't offend them. You say something that will make you look good. But again, people are not
Mhm.
able to communicate what they exactly want to say.
Yeah, and everything just feels so fabricated, sugar coated, that it's actually a mental drain to decode what a person is saying.
Yeah, I've had
Yeah, it's actually quite
yeah,
stressful.
I've had like very interesting experiences at college when again, this was the first few weeks of freshman year when I was getting to know people. And again, like, I would say something that I thought was normal. Again, nothing, obviously nothing derogatory, but just an opinion that I had. And
Mhm.
some of my friends were like, how can you say that? And I'm like, it's an opinion. I can have my opinion. It's not some, I'm not saying something that's morally wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you an opinion that might be different from yours. But again, like, people are just so afraid of having their opinion, or even just sh- sharing their opinion, having political conversations. People are again very politically correct, which I find
Mhm.
quite sad, because then people are losing their
Mhm.
identity. They're just becoming part of the hood.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I think this was
Yeah.
a good way to conclude everything. I think we've spoken about freedom through the stages and freedom in the world today. If you had one final takeaway about freedom, what would that be? On That can be on a personal level, on a global level, anything.
I would say let's stop focusing on the global level. Let's focus at more of a personal level and your immediate circle of
Mhm.
influence, where let's just focus on being free.
Yeah,
And if we can spread that message just to our immediate circle, I think that will have a ripple effect, which will eventually impact things at a society and a global level. So, yeah, be selfish to that extent, focus on your freedom, but of course, without harming anyone else. Uh, and in the process, you will hurt feelings, and that's okay, not a big deal. But in the grand scheme of things, you will be doing a lot more positive than negative. So, yes, again, if I were to sum it up, I would say yes, focus on achieving freedom for yourself first.
cool. Sounds good.